Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to talk about a cyberpunk setting that I never got a chance to use, but I designed and have been playing with in my head for a very long time. I know I've mentioned it before, but I don't think I've ever gone into detail, and I've searched my own videos for role-playing games, and I don't see anything in there with the right title. So if I've talked about this before, I apologize. I've made a lot of videos over the last 7+ years. It's sometimes hard for me to keep track of them all. And so I apologize if I've talked about this before. But what the heck? Anyone who hasn't heard it, you get to hear it now. So what I'm going to talk about was what happens to the Disney Corporation in Florida as the waters rise. So as the oceans rise, remember Florida is built on porous stone. So the water, even if you build seawalls, unless you pave the ground between the seawalls, the water is still going to come up there. So the area that you could preserve is going to be relatively small in comparison to the size of the state. So here's my idea. As more and more Floridians flee their state because it becomes uninhabitable, the Disney Corporation buys up more and more land around it, dirt cheap, for pennies on the dollar. And we're going to jump forward to the latter part of this century. So sometime around 2050, 2060, something like that, they begin to build a seawall. They begin to pave the area that they need to keep dry for the seawall, and they begin to pump out the center stuff. And they can do this because they have the resources and the little political and economic power to pull this off. And I'm figuring at this point we might have fusion, so they've got the fusion reactors to pull this off as well. So they're keeping that area dry. Their parks expand. They have new attractions. They have to deal with the fact that it's warmer. The weather is a little worse than it is now. Hurricanes are more frequent, things like that. But things are going along, and they're able to hold on to what they've got within that seawall, plus the lands they own outside of it. And they did this intentionally. They wanted that buffer zone. Jump forward to 2114, and the Disney Corporation decides to launch its single most ambitious project ever done. They're going to create the Lost Disney Arcology. They're going to dome over the entire area that they own within that seawall, which is the original plan all along, but they didn't tell anyone. Now, it's not going to be one single dome. It's going to be a serious dome. There was a video game-based animated film. I can't remember what video game it was. And they showed this city with this force field over it, which is kind of very asymmetric shape, and all these, the force fields were different sizes and things depending on where they were. That's kind of what it's going to look like. It's going to be a physical dome, but it's going to be different shapes, and it'll be arches, and it'll be round sections and oval sections, and it's all going to be this, hexagonal, Buckminster Fuller style structure. And not only is it going to protect them from weather, but they will be able to control the level of light through this cover by altering the reflectivity of it. And the surface is also a solar collector. Not as efficient as black, but you've got a big surface. Sun's all out there a whole lot of the time. So you're getting a lot of power. I'll combine that with the fusion reactors they already have, and they are amply capable of keeping their area, the area within it, powered and dry. And not only are they building this arcology, but they're building dwelling structures within it for 10 million people. So it's becoming one of the biggest cities in North America, as well as one of the biggest tourist attractions in the world. It takes them 27 years, 2 years beyond their target date. So in 2141, they finish the dome. It's now open for business. People have been trickling in over time as different sections finish, but now that's like cut the ribbon kind of thing, in 2141. And it's a hit. It's a perfect corporate city and you have to abide by the rules because they have set up a essentially extrajudicial system area under this dome. They are in control. It is Duckow, Mouse Witch, all on a bigger scale, cranked to 11, writ large. You have to live within their rules and their confines. And of course, this is then leads to shadow play and things going on like that. So you could use it as a straight up cyberpunk setting up until this point. Perfect for cyber generation with the kids living in the cracks between the walls, and in some cases literally living in the cracks between the walls. But how I wanted to use it was as a cyberpunk setting, but also as a post-apocalyptic setting. So it opens its doors officially in 2141, and it sails into the future until the end of the world in 2205, which is roughly when I think most of the settings I've got it. Something like 22 to between, I believe it's 2200 or to like 2230 is about the zone where I have the world end. And I like the nanotech plague gone wild. It starts hacking genes into people's bodies, and most people that get infected with this thing just die because it's rewriting their body in a way that is not conducive to living. And of the 10% that functions to survive this, like 99% of the people, the humans, are new humans now. And what had been almost a rumored psychic research program out there becomes a real thing because some of those genes were lifted out of this chaos and spliced into people. So now you've got Gamma World or the mutant epoch style mutations if you want. Or if you want something more along the lines of Aftermath or Morrow Project. Oh shoot, what was the Swedish one that just came out? Not Apocalypse World, which Apocalypse World work as well. I'm blanking on the name of the game. I apologize. I reviewed it here. I thought it had some weak spots because it had one of the reasons I didn't like it was the slave class, which I thought was absurd. But a lot of the other game I did enjoy. So you could decide what kind of post-apocalypse it is, of course. That's entirely up to you. What do you do with the city in the apocalypse? So you've got, inside the place, you've got 90% of humanity is dead. The 10% that survives, 99% of that is altered. 1% is unaffected. Maybe they had gene treatments that protected them from the overall plague or something. They are the pure strain humans. There are probably another 2 to 5% that think they're pure strain human because they are ghost mutants, Marvel hero type of mutants. They look perfectly normal except they have mutations, like Wolverine. Without the claws, he would not look. He'd be a short, furry dude. There are short, furry dudes all over the world, so he would not look unusual. He would be considered a peak athlete, but you could explain that away, particularly if you don't want to think about the fact that someone you know or as a member of your community is a mutant. Also, lots of the animals, say half the animals are affected by this plague, and of those, we'll say a quarter of them are mutant animals, and then a quarter of them become some kind of sapience of some degree or another, having some human characteristic, partially bipedal or fully bipedal. Some of them may look perfectly like humans, but be animals. They touched on that in the second edition of, well, actually both editions of After the Bomb, which is still the best mutant animal creation system ever done, even though its balance is really wonky. And then you have the factions that arise. And if you want to get really weird, the plants mutate as well, and some of them become sapient. Again, Gamma World 4th edition, my favorite edition of the game. The 1992 edition has mutant and plants, which I loved. So you have these weird things going on under the dome. Plus, you've got the AIs that run it, the robots that it still controls, if it still controls all of them. Some of them may have gone rogue. How much of this system is still functioning? Are some parts of this under this thing spitting to flood? Other areas are remaining dry. What happened to the world within this? Maybe the venturing party finally makes it there and they find it completely empty. perfectly preserved with an insane AI, an army of robots deciding that these beings must be cleansed. And it's willing to use fire to do it. So how you use this is up to you. But I've always loved the idea of the lost Disney Arcology. So I'm throwing this out there for someone to use. And again, I apologize if I've talked about this in the past. And if I've changed my story, yeah, the world is a dynamic place, and ideas and things change over time. Oh shoot, I haven't had the right sound on. I hope my voice isn't all screwed up. I apologize if it is. I know the volume is wonky. It makes no sense to me. I wish I could fix it. I can't. So tell me, how would you use this setting as a cyberpunk setting, and how would you use it as a post-apocalyptic setting? What variety of post-apocalypse would you use? Can you remind me what the heck the name of that game is? Oh, Mutant Year Zero. I remembered. I'm not as old as I think I am sometimes. But yeah, which version of the post-apocalyptic world would you use? Actually, what version of cyberpunk would you use? I'd probably go with Cyberpunk 2020 or the Mutant Epoch with some of the things stripped out, because I really love biotechnology in your cyberpunk world, and the Mutant Epoch covers biotechnology, cybernetics, and everything else really well. It lacks net running, but I consider that a feature, not a bug. So tell me, how would you use Lost Disney?